All right. Normally, when we're on late, I have no trouble throwing somebody under the bus. All right, whether it's Matthew or Bernie or whatever, I am open to do that. And he's suffered that consequence
a few times.
Yep,
yeah, so it happens,
and it's kind of fun, actually. But that being said, I walked in today and I said, guys, Bob Costas he showed up at halftime for a basketball game one time in Louisville. Not comparing myself to Bob Costas, I'm just saying that the best that ever has done it has shown up late. So I showed up late. Here's my excuse. I was at a Folds of Honor.
There you go. That's good excuse.
I'm on the board of Folds of Honor in Missouri, Southern Illinois. And we had a golf tournament meeting today over at Whitmore. And I was starving. So I stopped at Chick-fil-A on my way.
Fair enough.
And so that's why we are running a little bit late today. But we're glad to be here. And this is Matthew, by the way, who did not get thrown under the bus. This is all my fault. And later on in the show, we're going to talk to Nate Schwartz from the Pitcher List webpage, well, Twitter page, right? It's an X page more than anything else. But really interesting stuff, and we use a lot here in the show thanks to Matthew's knowledge of. It's great stuff.
They really hit the work hard lately, and it's been really impressive what they've put out. I had never seen them last year. And credit to them, they've hit you. I think like one of their founders was like posted an explainer video, and as an explainer video, he had a screenshot of their Twitter page at 7,000 followers. They're over 100,000 now.
Wow.
And that was a week ago. So they're probably over 200,000 now. So yeah, Nate's going to come on. A lot of great graphics. If you guys just want to know what kind of stuff we're going to be looking at, this is an example I'm going to put here on the screen. This is an example of the graphic that Pitcher List puts out specifically for pitchers. Mm-hmm. And you can see a lot of great information there. We're going to talk to Nate not only about, what is Andre Pallante showing you in this list, but also if you're back at home and you're Cardinals fans, how can you guys use these visuals that they'll put out the entire season? How can you use them to understand the Cardinals a little bit better? We'll ask him that as well. But also, when it comes to a guy like that, he's not just focusing on pitching. He's also focusing in on the hitting. We're going to talk a little bit about Jordan Walker as well. So we got some cool numbers that he has about Jordan Walker, some of his analytics as a hitter. So we're going to dive a little bit deep into the Cardinals this spring so far.
Looking forward to that. That'll be fun. And the big story of the day is the USA World Baseball Classic lost to Italy last night. And
shellacking.
Well, yeah, it was. It was 8-0 at one point. And people are saying shocking and stunning. Really?
I mean, yeah, it's not like Italy is one of those, like, it's not like the Italian team did it kind of like their Olympic hockey team. Mm-hmm. And when, purely people who play in Italy or were born in Italy or things like that, just go ahead and look at the Italian roster, and it's not that surprising that it happened. It's, every time, you'll see a lot of instances throughout this baseball season in 162 games where a team full of a lot of major leaguers happens to beat another team full of more talented major leaguers.
Exactly. And that's my point. Hell, the 2006 St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series. They had no business winning the World Series that year against the Detroit Tigers, but they did. The Los Angeles Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago, were swept at home by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Dodgers wound up winning the World Series. Pirates finished last in their division. Actually, it happened. So Pittsburgh took 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh
at the same time.
Yeah.
At the same time, this is a team whose best major leaguers are Jack Caglianone, mm-hmm. Vinny Pasquantino, and Thomas Saggese.
But is anybody shocked that Michael Lorenzen was able to go 4 2/3 scoreless against any team?
No, pitching staff's not bad.
You never know, and that's the thing about baseball. Baseball happens. Weird stuff happens in baseball. Now, the fact that Mark DeRosa, and by the way, I'm fine with Mark DeRosa. When he puts Paul Goldschmidt into the game for Bryce Harper, it's not like he's playing Jose Fermin at first base. All due respect to Jose Fermin,
but you gotta have some criticism in you, considering he made that decision without all the information that he should have had. And I think we can criticize a manager's decision when we now know that he made that decision not having the correct information at his fingertips by his own omission.
He definitely did that, but he also said that these guys hadn't played in the first 4 games, and he wanted to give them Gunnar Henderson. I mean, the thing is, Mark DeRosa with this roster, he can't make a mistake.
Well, apparently he can, because...
Well, no, they got lit up They scored 6 runs. The problem is that they got lit up by Michael Lorenzen.
That'll help.
And so,
but he played a different roster than he could have. And he said, and he admitted that he played that different roster because he thought they'd clinched their spot out of the group.
Well, that's what he said, that we had our ticket punched, but he also wanted, and hey, everybody thought that the USA, it didn't matter. Everybody thought that the USA was going to beat Italy, and then baseball happened, and it does. And that's, I think, the thing that most, like I was listening to MLB Network Radio today, and they're talking about how shocking and stunning it is. No, it's not. You've got a group of major leaguers that played another group of major leaguers, and the lesser of the two groups of major leaguers wound up winning the game. So I don't know why we are. It's one thing for the New England Patriots, 14.5-point underdog, to beat the greatest show on turf in the Super Bowl in a one-off. But in baseball, one-offs happen all the time. How rarely do you see a sweep in a best-of-5 or a best-of-7? It just doesn't happen very often because normally one team will beat the other team. Hell, a lot of times you will see a major league team that'll take a trip to their AAA outpost before the season starts, and the AAA team will win. This happens in sports.
The USA now, of course, are at danger of getting quote unquote grouped.
Yep.
And the way it can happen right now is simply if today's Mexico and Italy game is a low scoring game. That's essentially all that eliminates the United States right now from the WBC. If either Mexico or Italy scores more than 5 runs, the run differential factor for the tiebreaker comes into play. But if Italy or if Mexico wins 1-0, United States is out like that. And so some people are wondering if there can be some collusion going on between the Mexicans and the Italians, which has happened before in group stage competitions before. There's a famous game between I think Austria and West Germany that happened in one of the South American World Cups that has a very distinctive name right now. And so you could see some collusion, but it would honestly be hilarious if that game ends up being. Somebody said the Italian team can literally send their players up without bats, and they would move on by that virtue.
And Harper and Schwarber are lobbying Aaron Nola big time to give it everything he's got. We've got RDH here. Rock, admit it. You were rooting for the Italians. Viva la Italianos.
No, I'd also have to be watching. I'd also would have had to be watching the game to root for the Italians.
Oh, there you go. He was watching the Blues because I switched over after the Blues had wrapped things up. So I switched over to the baseball game. And I was very happy to see that the Blues are playing as well as they are. Because I after they made it 4-0, it was over. So I just flipped over to the baseball game then.
So
what?
Bad news. Fourth goal got called back, and they lost in overtime after the Oilers after they tied that one up. Islanders, not Oilers. Yeah, sorry, Randy. Blues somehow blew that one.
Oh no!
I know, not 5 straight.
Ethical tank.
A very ethical tank. One of the honestly, gosh, if they hadn't broken the tankometer with their 4-game win streak, the tankometer today I think would have fired up and given us a pretty positive answer. But yeah, sorry about that one. I just think it's funny because now people are actually like doing the hand wringing, and Big Honky 55 kind of gets it on the joke. Fire Alley, hire Mark DeRosa. I can't. Team USA hired a manager with no managerial experience.
He managed them last time. He's got a ton of managerial experience. He's managed 8 or 10 games.
People were actually, the funniest thing about it was the funniest clip I've seen from this though had to be Foul Territory talking about this, because they all had to like preface every time they made an opinion, they had to preface it with like, I love Mark. Mark's one of my best friends. I love hanging out with Mark. He's the best. And then they had to give an opinion on why what he did was so stupid. And that was honestly a very funny thing for me to watch this morning.
That is funny. And he should not have said that. Yeah, we want to win tonight, but our ticket is punched. And did you see that MLB scrubbed all the video of that you can't even find it now? They
brought it back. Because they're getting called out for being a bunch of pansies, like they should be. That's so insane. David Gerleman, I don't think DeRosa was a good choice. Critic pundit for MLB Network doesn't make you a manager. He does. The funniest thing is somebody posted that they need to get a travel ball manager because those guys have every scenario mapped out. The best quote is under that is somebody just goes, Mark DeRosa does coach a travel ball team. There's always
There you
one
go.
dad at the tournament who's like, okay, here's the
Yep.
path that we get to the championship. Here's where all the games are going to be. Here's where the dinners are going to be. There's always that one dad. And I'm kind of shocked. In fact, let's go to our WBC expert now, who is in Japan. He has now flown down to Miami for the next round of games. Joe Roderick joins us right now on the Randy Karraker Show. Answer the question that's in the title, Joe Roderick. Is it Mark DeRosa's fault if the USA gets through later today?
Yeah, I mean it's embarrassing what happened yesterday. For him to go out and say that. It's one thing to like go about it and afterwards, be like, oh shit, like didn't realize that that could have happened. But for him not to know that at that level, you mentioned like travel ball coach. Okay, I do that with Hudson. I can tell you going into every game, I will sit there and I will be like, okay, how do we get into the bronze bracket, the silver bracket? Hey, if I stall long enough and we only give up 2 runs this inning, hey, we can win the bronze. And then on Facebook on Monday, all the moms can be like, hey, we worked our way through the bracket and won a championship. Like, trust me, like, all that stuff. But on top of that, like, you look, there are so many coaches below Mark DeRosa. Like nobody in that room, Matt Holliday in that room didn't step up and say anything. Like I'm just naming, Andy Pettit didn't say anything about it. You look at all of the guys that are there. Not one person was like, hey, Mark, actually, we do need to win this game tonight. And on top of that, like, I mean, you looked like, if you watched the game yesterday, Bryce Harper was like, just looked legit pissed off in the dugout the entire game that he was benched. Yesterday, like Bryce Harper was kind of sitting there like, what the hell, man? Like, hey, cool. Like get Paul Goldschmidt some at bats when we're up by 10 runs. Like this, you don't need to be starting him over me in this game. It's inexcusable to do it, to have that happen. And you're benching Alex Bregman, Cal Raleigh, and Bryce Harper in a game that you needed to win, and now you're sitting there with your fate is in the hands of Italy tonight.
I wonder if they just decided we are such a super team that we don't need to worry about it. Like I said to Matthew earlier, DeRosa really can't make a mistake because every player that he's going to put out there is a good player. Now, some are better than others, no doubt about it, but I wonder if this, and like he said, we've got our ticket punched, and there's no way that he knew that they didn't have their ticket punched. He definitely thought that was the case. But I also wonder if maybe they thought they're so good that they don't need to worry about any of the peripheral stuff like you look at with your team and say, okay, this is what we need to do. I have to think that these guys are thinking, oh, we're going to win every game. We got nothing to worry about.
To a point, yeah, but I mean, you could do that against Great Britain. You could do that against Brazil. Like knowing, okay, hey, we're going to rock the starter. When we get into the bullpen, we're going to rock those guys. You were facing a major league pitcher last night who has faced each and every one of these guys at some point in his long career. Like you're facing an all-star pitcher. You're not facing just some guy you're like, oh yeah, that guy used to pitch for the Orioles. That kind of situation. Like you are looking like and also on top of that, like they were also 2-0 going into that. They were also really, they were playing really good baseball too. Just to kind of look at it the way they did, I again, like people, you look at, go through this. I mean, they didn't win last time. I don't know why DeRosa was back. Like, I don't know how a manager, somebody with managerial experience didn't step up and be like, hey, you know what? I'll take that team over. Instead, it's really bad. And man, I tell you what,
or Bochy. Yeah. There are other, like you said, Joe, there are managers out there that they could have put in place for this team.
You know what? He should have a former manager, like next to him too. I know he's got guys there that are on major league coaching staffs, but man, like it's really bad right now. And I think the easiest way to look at it tonight, like if Italy scores 4 runs tonight, U.S. is in. Like that's all. You can look at all the scenarios, everything. The simplest way to explain it, like Italy needs to score 4 runs tonight. And then no matter the result of the game, like they're in. Like U.S. is in and they advance. I saw somebody in the comments say like the strike zone is going to be tight tonight. Yeah, this is going to be like Aaron Nola is going to throw. It's going to be like Livan Hernandez in the playoffs right now with his strike, with how he's just going to be throwing strikes, and there's no ABS in the World Baseball Classic. It's going to be real fun to watch Aaron Nola go out there and deal for Italy tonight, because they want the Italians to win and just wipe out anything. If it gets to be a blowout, though, like if each team scores like 5 or 6 runs in the first inning, then it's okay. Screw it, whatever. We don't care who advances after this, as long as the U.S. is in.
You talk about being the expert at kind of planning what's going to happen in the brackets. Now, Joe, things get blown up. USA gets grouped. How does your WBC watching experience change? Will you plan to try to go to a different game now, depending on how the bracket looks? If USA loses, how does that change for you?
I mean, well, so for me, it's not going to matter. Like tonight, so I'm down here in Miami. Tonight is the end of the pool here. Tonight is Dominican Republic and Venezuela. It's the only game tonight. Both teams are 3-0, and both teams have clinched their spot in the quarterfinals. But it is kind of a big game tonight, because the loser of this game has to face Japan on Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or Friday or Saturday, whatever the quarterfinal game is for that, they have to face Japan. The winner gets to face Korea. So I think the way it shapes up, I think Yamamoto is pitching the quarterfinal game for that, and the pitch limit goes up once you get into the quarterfinal round. So he gets more pitches to throw in that, and it is fun too. Sandy Alcantara is pitching tonight for the Dominican Republic. So yeah, they not only that, so you have him pitching for his country at his home field tonight. So like the crowd is going to be amazing. I can't, like, as soon as I'm off with you guys, I'm walking down to the stadium. The game starts in 3.5 hours. So I'm going to go down there and kind of just take it all in and start posting stuff on Twitter and Instagram, so you can follow everything there. But to your point, Rock, like from now on, like it's an off day tomorrow, workout day tomorrow, and then quarterfinals Friday, Saturday, semifinals. So then all the teams come here for the semifinals on Sunday and Monday, and then the championship on Tuesday. So I don't have any. I'm just going to baseball games. My next week consists of going to 6 baseball games, and I couldn't be any happier right now.
So if the U.S. does in fact fall, and I know Korea's on one side of the bracket, Japan's on the other, which Latin American team becomes kind of the favorite to maybe beat Korea or beat Japan and face off against maybe one of those teams in the final?
I've said from the beginning, the Dominican Republic lineup is disgusting. And I've said from the beginning that the Dominican Republic was my favorite to win this whole thing. I thought I looked at the USA, and yeah, they had a good 7 hitters in their lineup. I think it kind of fell off at the end when you have Skubal saying he's only going to pitch 1 game and then he's going to bounce, and you don't have all of the pitching you thought you were going to have. I was worried about that in the beginning. So I always thought from the beginning, I know brackets have to shape up a certain way, but Japan and Dominican Republic were always my 2 favorites in this tournament, and USA was 3rd. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. And I want to see USA here, but I would not be upset with a Japan-Dominican Republic championship game here at this field, because the Japanese fans will travel well, and they're going to come out here to watch Shohei, and the Dominican Republic crowd here is going to be insane.
And by the way, tonight, the Italy game against the Mexicans, Javier Assad is going for Mexico. It's Nola against Assad. So should be really interesting, and I'm sure people will be tuned in. And what a bummer for the USA. Joseph, always good to see you, sir. Thank you, and we appreciate the time.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for letting me check in.
You got it. That's our buddy Joe Roderick. He is one of the team members here at STL Sports Central, and he's following the World Baseball Classic, and the United States of America team could be eliminated with the permutations that take place tonight. Let's now go back to the Zoom, and Nate Schwartz from Pitcher List joins the show, and we've been using that material a lot here during spring training. It's fascinating, a fascinating look at pitching and the way people utilize it, and Nate is kind enough to join us. Nate, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you guys as well. Happy to be here. And happy to talk Cardinals pitching, Cardinals hitting, and a lot of the data stuff that Pitcher List has to offer.
Well, let's start with that. When somebody checks out Pitcher List, what is it that you like to bring them? What sort of knowledge do you deliver?
So I'm a senior analyst at Pitcher List. In the season, I'll be writing kind of league-wide, player breakdowns or other statistical deep dives of things, going on across the league. But one of the things that I'm really trying to do this year is I now started, and the first real episode will be out in a few days. I have a new podcast with the director of data analytics at Pitcher List, Kyle Bland, called The Approach Angle. And the point of this podcast is to teach everyone all things baseball analytics. As we'll get into here, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of graphs out there, and I think it can be overwhelming for a lot of people when, a new stat just came out, how do we use it? And all of these things could just, even for, true baseball fans, it can get really overwhelming really quickly. And we want to be able to explain a lot of, what that means. How can you actually use it? Because a pitch card like this, which we just came out with, and, it's seen very good results on social media and it's been well received. But there's a lot of information. And when I'm in my day-to-day looking at Cardinals pitchers, I'm not using every single bit of this every time. So really being able to, effectively communicate about the data, but then also, use it to your benefit, whether, we are a fantasy baseball site at heart. So, if you're trying to win your fantasy baseball leagues, or you're trying to do just general player analysis and write stories or understand the game in a better place.
So you mentioned these cards, and we have one up right now for Matthew Liberatore's most recent start. And I know right now, if you go to Pitcher List, PLV, Pitcher List Stats on Twitter, there's a really great breakdown of the cards. But if we want to kind of simplify things to your point, to how people can maybe use these cards if they're just a fantasy baseball player or they just love Cardinals baseball, like using Matthew Liberatore's on the screen right now, what are the big things when we see these things pop up, as we're scrolling? What are the big things Cardinals fans should be looking at? What's the best way to interpret them and so on?
Yeah, so with these, it's, there's really three big things here. That top line performance, whether that be your classic pitching line, and then the skills and results thing that is in the top left corner. Then, usage, location, and specific pitch results if you want to go that deep. These are really meant to be kind of a launching off point to get a quick understanding of what a start looked like. And then if there's something specific you want to go deeper into, you can do that, on your Pitcher List player page in Baseball Savant, Fangraphs, go back and watch the start to see how it played out in real time. But first we have that skills tab in the top left. And so we have our stuff model, which grades a pitch based on characteristics like velocity, movement, release point, stuff like that. And we give it a grade on a scale. We also do the same thing for locations. So on a per, the run expectancy of where a pitch type is located. And both of these are count dependent. So a fastball, right down the middle is going to get graded differently in an 0-0 count versus an 0-2 count. And I think that's a very important distinction to make. It's not just this blank number that, you've got really high, there's 150 stuff plus fastball. You can't just throw it over and over again and expect good results. Everything is in context here. So these give you, the letter grade is a quick say, for Liberatore, the stuff was, average-ish, but he located great. And overall, the PLV is kind of the combination of that. We call that pitch level value. And that really exemplifies what, the true performance looked like under the hood. And then the results will be, it's very similar to game score. Mm-hmm. So that one number, grading performance based on those top line things, we have aggregated that into a letter grade. So go ahead.
Well, Nate, I was going to ask you, number one, who has looked good in with this analytics data for the Cardinals this spring? One or two guys, and does March matter? Is what you see now, because we always hear about pitchers working on different things. So is what we see now perhaps different than what we'll see once the regular season starts?
Absolutely. I don't really put too much stock into anything in spring unless there's something new that catches your eye and say, we have not seen this before. So even for Dustin May, who came out sitting, 98, 99 in his first start, it's like, wow, well, that would be amazing. And today I think he was about a tick down, obviously still up from last year, which is great. But, you can't extrapolate this to say, hey, Dustin May is going to look this good for the full year. There might be increases, but this is within what he had thrown in years past. And it's something where I'm not going to really worry. And on the pitch usage, which is another, I think, arguably the most important part of these cards, is you break it out into, the different handedness. And one of the things that I've really learned in my analytics journey over the last 2 years or so, as I've really gotten into it, is that every pitcher is two separate pitchers, one to left-handed hitters and one to right-handed hitters. And this Dustin May card is great because you can really see that specifically. He mostly threw only sweepers and sinkers to right-handed hitters, and then he was mostly fastball and a plethora of other offerings to left-handed hitters. So you can see that he's still tinkering. And a lot of these guys will say, oh, well, I want to face hitters. I want to face hitters today and throw my fastball a ton, see how it plays with them. And for us on the public side, we can freak out and take that data for however we want, but that's not going to be what his strategy is going to be when the games matter and stuff like that. So it's really trying to look a little bit under the hood, but I'm never too worried now, because it's not worth the mental energy to freak out over this stuff before the season starts.
So you mentioned reacting to new things, and I'm going to go back to the Liberatore page from a couple days ago, because you were tweeting out about his changeup usage and why that was so enticing. Again, seeing something a little bit different than what we saw in his profile last year, and how he adds it here in spring. He's trying something new, and if it can be successful, how that changes him as a pitcher. Dive into a little bit about what you saw in that changeup usage from Matthew Liberatore this spring.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for him has been finding what are the offerings you need to be able to deal with right-handed hitters. That's the biggest way you need to be able to be a successful pitcher in the big leagues. You need to be able to get the majority of right-handed hitters out. And for Liberatore, the slider has been this great pitch that he's really leaned in on, that he took from his time relieving and has really turned it into a real weapon. But other than that, the curveball is this great pitch. It is not as legendary as a Clayton Kershaw curveball, but it can look like that at times. And it's a very slow pitch. It can freeze guys, but it's not going to be this pitch that makes guys look silly more often than not. So we needed something to be more vertical that can miss bats from the right-handed side and consistent. And if you look at his heat maps of his changeups that he threw last year, there might not be as many that were as well located as what he did in his start 2 days ago, which really, that is something that's like, oh, that is new. I am intrigued by that. And I am intrigued by it because he talked about, oh, well, maybe I'm going to throw a splitter and a changeup, really play around with different pitch types and find what works the best for him. And we haven't seen a splitter from him at all this year, but I think some sort of that development really helped him find command of that changeup. And if he can put it in locations like this, it will unlock the slider to be that much better. He doesn't need to throw that in the zone as frequently, and really gives him a lot more options. To his fastballs aren't great against right-handed hitters, but if he has a changeup, it really brings, everything together. Not necessarily, I don't think he's going to be an ace, but I think this could solidify him as like a very solid middle of the rotation starter.
Hey, Nate, what have you thought of Kyle Leahy so far? He obviously pitching deeper into games because he's a starter now. He normally didn't go 4 as a relief pitcher. What have you seen from him, especially as he gets deeper into games?
I think the biggest thing for me is that his velocity is holding. It hasn't dropped off too far. We've been seeing him sit around 93, 94, which is, definitely passable for him. And then he's actually holding it in the start where he was perfect. The velocity looked pretty good in the 3rd and 4th inning. And, he doesn't need to become a 6, 7, 8 inning, bulldog out there. But if he can get you to 5 and into the 6th consistently, the Cardinals are going to need a lot of innings this year. You've got a lot of young guys. There's going to be a lot of opportunity. And Leahy has enough great breaking pitches that he's consistently found ways to get swings and misses with and induce weak contact with, that as long as the arsenal is holding just enough, I'm absolutely in. I think this would be a really nice developmental piece of work by the Cardinals, and I'm really excited to see. I think he has a lock on that 5th spot coming out of camp, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it.
And now let's do one final pitcher, somebody that we Cardinals fans have no preconceived notions about because we don't know what he is, but we have been pleasantly surprised in the velocity specifically coming from one of the players they traded for in Richard Fitts. Velo's been the big thing with him, but obviously, he gets hit at the end of his last start. There's other things that are going to come into play here. What are we looking at with Richard Fitts? What are you looking at here in the spring that he really has to lock in on for maybe to get a rotation spot here for the Cardinals?
Yeah, so for Richard Fitts, the biggest thing is command. He had a really big issue with throwing strikes last year, and I think you can see that in the location charts on the pitch card. So you don't see a lot of consistency stuff in the zone. There doesn't seem to be, he's throwing his fastballs up here and his sliders over here. It seems kind of an amalgamation of everything. Just he's trying to put it into the zone and hope for the best. And I would worry that all of the stuff grades, the pitches themselves, whether it's the velocity on the fastball or the movement on the slider and the sweeper, look really, really good. But I don't think he's effectively found a way to tie it all together into being a starter with a legitimate arsenal. One of the really interesting things that I think I see with him and Dustin May is that, Cardinals fans really haven't seen a starter like either of these two guys having this velocity in some time. And I think there's a lot of expectation as you see that 97, 98 miles an hour, and you're like, ooh, well, this is going to be something special. And in today's baseball, you really need to have that arsenal and everything else that comes along behind it. And you still, even though these stuff grades, they dominate social media and it's all a lot of people want to talk about when you get really into analytics, you have to be able to locate. Locations are what get swings and misses, not the stuff itself. I think back to like a Miles Mikolas, for example, where he could throw a slider down and away and that would get a swing and miss. Even though it wasn't a particularly great slider, he executed on his pitch and it could get a swing and miss. He has a smaller margin for error, so when it's not well located, when it's not in the zone, or when it's in the middle of the zone, it leads to a lot of damage. Yeah. But you need to be able to locate this stuff well and actually be a pitcher. You still can't just be a thrower. And I think Richard Fitts is still in that kind of thrower realm, and we need to see him take that next step, which I think will be in AAA, to become a true pitcher if he wants to succeed in the rotation.
Follow Nate on X at _Nate Schwartz. You fancy yourself on your Twitter bio as a left-handed changeup enthusiast. Why did that come about, first of all? And who has your favorite left-handed changeup of all time?
So I grew up left-handed pitcher, left-handed human being myself. And so I always, for the longest time, I don't think left-handed changeups have been fully appreciated for how good they are and how good they can be, and they don't blow away the radar gun. They don't make you say, oh well, he threw a frisbee there. It's just a good pitch and it shows the sign of a good pitcher. And right now, Tarek Skubals, it's so fun to watch, just the way you've got this great fastball and then you watch a changeup, just he drops it in and it just falls off a plate, and it's really just incredible to watch.
Have you had any opportunities to watch John Tudor highlights over the years?
No, I have not.
Watch some John Tudor highlights. You'll love his changeup. And obviously, Tom Glavine, right? He's in the Hall of Fame, but his change was legendary.
Yeah, it's something that I will always hold on to. I'm just, I'm a fan of, I also think left-handed hitters have just, prettier swings in general than right-handed hitters. And I try not to let that bias go too far when I'm looking at guys, but with the amount of left-handed pitchers in the Cardinals pipeline, from Liberatore to Quinn Matthews, Doyle, I'm like, this is as good as it gets for me.
Let's shift over to some hitting, because you put out a poll today on your Twitter, and again, Randy just threw it out there, at Nate Schwartz. Which pitch type do you think Jordan Walker makes worse decisions against, fastballs or breaking balls? And it felt like potentially there's a trick question in there, but let's get into a little bit of this Jordan Walker conversation. And you sent me over some graphics, so if you want to just kind of let me know which ones would be the best ones for this conversation. What I know we got a TV one here, we got a fastball one here. Which one's the first one we want to look at?
Let's start with the breaking ball decision value against breaking balls.
All right, there it is. Jordan Walker's decision value versus breaking balls. Let's get a better look here so we can see it a little bit bigger. So there it is. Jordan Walker's 2025 decision value facing off against breaking balls. What are we looking at? What does it tell us?
So first, I want to say that this data is built off of that pitch level value data that Pitcher List has. So we're grading every single pitch, every single count on stuff and location. And that becomes really, really useful on the hitting side, because we can reward players for deciding to swing at the right pitches in the right locations and reward them accordingly. So for example, if you hit a homer on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball on the black, that's pretty freaking cool. You're going to get rewarded a ton for that. However, if you do that, on a 90-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle, I'd say, and the data will say that doing that on 100 is a lot more impressive. And you can aggregate that out into making swing decisions, swing aggression, how hittable are the pitches you're facing. So giving you, I really like that we have the decision value data, because that looks at every single pitch, whereas some of the contact and power stats only come about when the ball's put in play, which for a player like Jordan Walker, I think can miss a lot of the story because there are a lot of whiffs in the profile. And the decision value stuff is not stuff that you can easily find really anywhere else. But for Jordan Walker, we all know that he swings and misses on a lot of pitches out of the zone. Especially the breaking stuff, it's been more and more. And that was not, I won't say not the case, but it wasn't as bad when he came up as it is now. And so for a guy like Jordan Walker, there's a very clear archetype on how he can work as a very tall, very large hitter. And you see it with guys like Aaron Judge or Elly De La Cruz or O'Neal Cruz, where they will gladly whiff on the pitch down and away in the zone. When they get beat, it'll probably be a swing and miss. But when they get their fastball, they're crushing it in the zone. So when I was researching this, I was really shocked to find that his decision value on breaking balls last year, so, really kind of his worst year, it tailed off towards the end, but it was really over the full season, it was perfectly average, 100 decision value. It decreased throughout the year, but he wasn't doing anything super out of the ordinary here. But if you want to flip to the fastball decision value now, this is about
oh my God,
this is about as bad as I have ever seen. This is where you look back to 2023, what made him good? He crushed fastballs. You gave him something in his wheelhouse. I think he hit, like 350 on it, with like his expected slugging was like either 550 or 600 and stuff. And now, last year, I think he hit like 158 against fastballs. That's completely evaporating a player. And I think kind of the common, response here is that, oh, well, pitchers know that he's going to only face, he's going to swing and miss at a breaking ball out of the zone. So that's all I'm going to throw him. But he got 52% fastballs last year. Pitchers need to throw fastballs and they need to throw strikes. The lowest total in baseball last year was O'Neal Cruz at 41% fastballs. And I know Aaron Judge, Elly De La Cruz, James Wood also faced less fastballs than Jordan Walker. So he's still going to get, it's on the lower side, but he's still going to get fastballs to hit. He needs to do something with them. And my kind of theory here is that after 2023, the Cardinals asked him to clean up a weakness rather than capitalize on a strength. I think they told him, hey, you need to absolutely be able to lay off those sliders away. And he did everything in his power to do that at the cost of not being able to hit the fastball anymore, because that is where he can make his money and everything would come into play, because those are the pitches you really hit. And I think he's just really gotten himself into a very tough spot here with what this decision-making looks like, because, I think his season looks even vastly different if he's at a 10th percentile or 25th percentile decision value against fastballs.
So you wonder how it can get better, though, right? It's obviously, if you're a baseball player who's had 1,000 major league at bats now, you hope he can get better. But if the fastball is the key for any hitter, right? You got to be able to hit that. And if he's not making good decisions against the fastball, I wonder how they fix that.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that it's not a physical thing. It doesn't, he's not unable to get the ball out of the park. We all know that. He hits the ball hard. And the other underlying stat, if you want to flip to the the process plus chart.
I'll get that one. Sorry about that. There it is.
All good. That's, yeah, there we go. Is that the contact ability here? So, how well is he made? Yes, there were some downfalls throughout the year, but that's a lot less of a drag against the profile at decision-making, as his decision-making. And we know that the power just really pops, and that will come with time when he's putting balls in play. So I think the biggest thing for him here is that it's a purely mental thing. And you all see it when he's sitting, it's a 2-0 count and he gets that fastball and he does that little check swing right after the pitch hits the catcher's glove. And we're like, everyone in the ballpark knows that he should have been swinging at that pitch. And it's one of those things where it feels like if you have the right people talking to him, that he can make progress here. I think it was really encouraging to hear from Ollie a couple of weeks ago that he was saying that this is the best communication that they've had in an off season. And it's one of those things that even though the spring hasn't really shocked anyone or been, lights out, that he's putting himself in a position to really succeed come opening day.
Also, I like that you included this in the graphics you sent me, because this is what Jordan Walker looks like last year, obviously, which is a bad season. Now you go over to how it looks when one of the best Cardinals hitter is put into this graph, and that's what an Ivan Herrera 2025 season looks like. So it kind of shows you, it's a great example of the discrepancy of what a bad season looks like on this graph and what a good season looks like, and how obviously everything's happening above the line for Herrera, but just to the degree at which Jordan Walker, is from Herrera production-wise, does kind of shock your system a little bit if you're a Cardinal fan seeing this.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. One of my favorite, analytical tools is the rolling chart. I know they're freely accessible on Fangraphs, where if you go into a player and then choose like player graphs, you can play around with it. And you see a stat, at the end of a month, at the end of the first half of the season. Right now we're looking at 2025 data. That one, a 25% strikeout rate is not a 25% strikeout rate at any point of the year. It's always a rolling thing as the season changes, as a hitter adapts, as pitchers adapt to a hitter. So even for an Ivan Herrera, you can see that, the power has been consistent, but he did have a power outage. The contact and decision-making has been, pretty consistent, albeit with some up and down, some ups and downs, but you can really see that, the season is not linear. And I really like this as a tool to understand for any stat, really. How is a player developing as the season goes on? What is changing under the hood that might be impacting that output that, you don't see on a day-to-day basis?
One last graph that you sent me from Jordan Walker. This one is tracking the rolling data across his swing aggression. So what exactly are we looking at here? How does it? How do you balance it with what we were just talking about with his inability to kind of lay off those bad pitches?
Yeah. So swing aggression can be, like most baseball stats in context, right? Certain hitters can be great with swing aggression. One of the guys who we saw really become less aggressive last year was Mason Wynn at the beginning of the year before he kind of adjusted. Or as we all know, Lars Nootbaar is about as low on this as anyone can be as a very passive hitter. So what this tells me, it was pretty consistent, and then he really just spiked in the back half of the year. was that, something wasn't working. He was just trying to swing his way out of his issues. That's really the biggest tell here. It doesn't seem anything kind of in line with him. And you really look at Jordan Walker's archetype, he's a big power hitter who swings and misses a lot and makes a lot of decisions. Is he a guy that you want taking a ton of swings in not great situations? Probably not. I think a good comparison for this, I think the highest hitter in swing aggression across the league last year was Pete Crow Armstrong. And you can visually see that, but he has the ability to make contact on anything and everything. So you can say, sure, go be aggressive. We know you'll figure it out. So this is one of those things where I'm going to be looking to monitor it really early in the season to see what it looks like. Does he have a new approach to his aggression, but then also overall, is he attacking fastballs in the correct way that's bringing him the results that, could bring him back to any semblance of 2023 and make him a part of the Cardinals' future?
And major league teams have brought aboard so many people from outside, a lot of people obviously from Baseball Prospectus and other analytically background people like yourself. First of all, do you know if what you're doing is being noticed by the major leagues? And I would think that if the major leagues came to you, that you would have some interest, right?
I mean, I would love, that is the dream, to work for a team and have that opportunity. And I know a lot of the teams are doing very similar stuff. They're all, they're probably all 3 or 4 steps ahead of where the public is, because there's a lot of data that gets captured on StatCast that the public doesn't get, that teams have access to. And they have all of their own, every team has their own, pitch model, and I'm sure they all have their hitter models. And it's really interesting to see how all of them develop. And I know Chaim brought on a lot of new people last offseason, and it's exciting to see that those seem to be people who, hopefully are much, much smarter than I am, and making the right decisions and pulling the right data to get the most out of these players. Because I think one of the biggest things we've seen with the Cardinals, specifically over the last couple of years, is they do a great job generating prospect pedigree, and they really struggle turning that into something substantial. And I think JJ Weatherholt will break that a little bit, just because he's a very contact first guy. But, we all want to see another star in St. Louis, and it seems like they're creating and setting up the framework to really have that happen again.
We've talked about a lot of players on the Cardinals, almost the entire starting pitching rotation and some of the hitters. Is there somebody we failed to mention here that you're kind of watching that's jumping off the page, whether positive or negative, that you're going to be watching for this Cardinals season? Obviously, a lot of young players, so there's a lot of room for players to improve or maybe fall out of contention. Is there one we're missing?
So I think the biggest one for me will be Josh Baez. I think his ability to get, right back on the radar and really show that is a substantial change that is going to stick for this year makes him a really, really exciting option. I think will be a dynamic addition to the outfield, whether it be later this year or next year. That is just going to be awesome to watch. But I will do a different one, maybe the oldest guy on the Cardinals roster this year, Ryne Stanek. He looked electric in his appearance a couple days ago. And when you look at the back half of the Cardinals bullpen, you have Riley O'Brien, who's under team control for a while and has, he's dealing with a calf injury. Obviously, there's been a lot of talks about Jojo Romero as a closer. I don't know if he necessarily has the profile as a left-handed weak contact guy to do so. And then there's Matt Swanson, who has a sinker, which again does not normally fit the mold of a closer. And then you've got Ryne Stanek, who's pumping 99 with his fastball. He's got a wipeout slider. He has experience at the back end of games in the playoffs and with other, down the stretches with good teams. And I could see the Cardinals saying, hey, go get us saves for 2 months and we'll ship you off the deadline to a contender. That would not surprise me if the Cardinals, really lean into that early in the year, kind of out of nowhere.
Nate, a couple more quick things. Number one, I presented to Matthew yesterday that I think, and it's in hearing from people in the industry, that it is hard analytically to evaluate catchers defensively. Do you find that? Is there a way to evaluate the way that a catcher manages a game, aside from the physical aspect of things? Is there a methodology there where you can possibly measure what a catcher is doing behind the plate, both physically and mentally?
So I don't I know there are a plethora of catching stats, all of which can tell you, 4 or 5 different things. I think at some point last year, the stats pointed that Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pajes were equal in terms of catcher fielding value. And I think we all know that, more or less was not the case. And I don't think there's really a good way to capture for pitchers, who do they feel the most comfortable throwing to? And I think that is really important for, that is arguably one of the largest parts to having a successful baseball team, making your pitchers feel comfortable and wanting to succeed. And I think that's really important. So I don't usually look at anything in particular. And this is a great situation where I will go away from the numbers. What are the guys saying, in the post-game comments and stuff like that of, there's been a lot of, positive feedback about Pedro Pajes catching, and I wouldn't mind, seeing him start the year as that primary catcher until Crooks is ready, and then we see how it goes there. But I really cannot stress enough that, that familiarity and comfort level, like Ivan Herrera will find a place in the lineup. The bat is too good not to get opportunities. So you might as well find a way to help that run prevention. And I'd be really interested to see, I don't think I've seen anything anywhere about it, but are teams like tracking what catchers call on the pitch comm? I know the Marlins are doing coaches are calling pitches, which is a thing in itself. And I don't know if that would apply league wide, but are they really being able to see and drill down to, hey, why did you call for the slider down and away here? I think that'd be a really interesting way that I wonder if teams kind of on the back end are grading.
And then finally, we've got the way people can access you on the crawl on the bottom. And you guys are turning out new material literally every day, right?
Yes. We've got a full staff. We're right in the thick of things right now. You can find, I'll be writing on the Pitcher List site in a couple of weeks once the season gets started, but there's all sorts of other great content by other great analysts. And then you can find me on the Approach Angle podcast, which is, again, trying to explain some of these complex concepts in a more digestible way.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Nate.
Nate Schwartz from Pitcher List, and you can just go to pitcherlist.com. And as we mentioned, _, at _ Nate Schwartz.
I wanted to highlight one of the things he threw out there, because you look at the swing aggression that he talked about there, right around August 1st is when you start seeing the tick up there. And then if you go to his play against breaking balls, look where things start dropping off. Almost about 3 weeks later, right before the turn into September. Look at how his decision value against breaking balls falls off an absolute cliff as soon as he to Nate's point, gets to a point where he's like, I don't like what I'm seeing right now. I just need to swing at the first thing. Pitchers figured that out. Probably were throwing him earlier, low and away sliders and breaking balls and things like that. And you saw that tumble down. That's why I love when these graphs can really articulate what you're seeing and be like, okay, I know he started struggling a little bit in September. What happened? We can see it now. He started going up there and just kind of taking the first pitch. We've seen hitters knock themselves out of slumps doing that. Clearly, it did not do that against breaking pitching for Jordan Walker. Really fascinating just how much worse he was against fastballs. Didn't expect that, but it really, you can't be a good Major League Baseball player if you can't hit fastballs.
You cannot. No, you got to
full stop.
No, it's even if it's 105, good major league hitters are going to hit it if it's not moving. There's no doubt about that. All right, we wanted to get to this, and we're going to talk a little Blues in a moment. But a post going around on social media about a fictional MLB redraft.
Yes,
and what the top 3 picks would look like.
Yeah, Kansas City fans got their hand on it.
Yeah. Bobby Witt Jr. was going to
Yes. So there was a post yesterday about a fictional Major League Baseball redraft. Who would go top 3? And I was expecting
anybody in Major League Baseball, any player.
And heck, honestly, if you can take anybody in the world, if you're really obsessed with Murakami, sure, go grab him. The post seemed pretty easy. Obviously, you're going to take the guy who's won MVP and championships like it's nothing the last few years, and also plays 2 positions at a borderline MVP level at both of them. Obviously, you're going to take that guy. No. Not if you're a Kansas City Royals fan. Then you're special boy. He's younger. He's on a cheaper contract. He's making great defensive plays at the WBC. Of course, it's Bobby Witt Jr., guys. We all were ignoring the way that really good defensive shortstops just obviously just churn out wins when you're in Kansas City. I couldn't believe it. Then I remembered that I was talking with a lot of Kansas City fans, and I became less surprised.
I think I would be inclined not only to take Ohtani ahead of Bobby Witt Jr., who is great. He's awesome. But Aaron Judge is such a dominant offensive force. How
that was
can
the
you
other
not
one.
take Aaron Judge ahead of Bobby
Everyone,
Witt Jr.?
they were all agreeing that is essentially a guaranteed top three in some order of Shohei, Judge, Bobby Witt. And they were just arguing the youth and the contract value a bunch. And I was like, listen, I understand that. That's a good argument if we're talking about a 25-year-old quarterback in the NFL. It changes a little bit in baseball where Shohei Ohtani, because of the fact that he has both skills and how baseball works, it's not like Shohei Ohtani's staring down the barrel of the end of his career right now. It's like, yes, he's 31 years old, but like he'll be able to pitch until he's 37.
Yeah.
At least. He'll probably be able to hit until he's 34. So I understand the thought process, but I believe it to be flawed. Is all I've got to say.
Now, Bobby Witt is 25. Juan Soto is 27.
Also true.
For me, that's a really tough choice. In fact, I would really have to put some thought into it. Witt obviously plays a more valuable position, and he's a better defender at shortstop than anywhere Juan Soto could play defensively. But if you look at their offensive history, you'd probably want Juan Soto.
I mean, Soto is such an interesting player because, like, you know that the talent level is undeniably maybe one of the greatest we've ever seen.
Right.
But I would understand a team saying, yeah, I'm just going to roll with one of the other players above him. Like I wouldn't, it doesn't shock me that so many people are saying this is what the top three is. Juan Soto is probably in the top five, but I think it's a pretty unimpeachable top three. Even, and I get with Witt so much younger and on the cheap contract, I do agree he gets a couple spots higher than just a pure talent ranking because he is on a super cheap contract. Does have a bunch of opt-outs that will make it not a super cheap contract when he opts out after at the very first chance and goes to LA or New York. Sorry, Kansas City fans, cry not cope. I see why it does add value to him overall.
There's no doubt about it. But people in New York, Yankees fans, Met fans, are asking for more from Juan Soto because they know more is there. And in his last 2 years, in 2024 with the Yankees, 989 OPS, 2025 with the Mets, 921 OPS. And we all know that he can do even more than that. And pretty much any team, how far away would he be from the number 2 Cardinal with numbers like that? With 41 and 109 for the Yankees 2 years ago, 43 and 105 for the Mets last year. And by the way, had 38 stolen bases too. So I'm a big fan of Juan Soto. I would have a tough time because he's only 2 years older. I would have a difficult time taking Witt over Soto.
That's very fair. One thing I also wanted to add to today's show is this is a video that I saw going around when Jose Baez, Joshua, not Jose. This is me reading a prospect list earlier today and telling myself, don't ever call Joshua Baez Jesus Baez. And then I immediately got on the air and called him Jose Baez like a moron. Anyhow, this is the Joshua Baez home run. And in the aftermath, as I referenced the other day, a Cardinal fan who was down at the game live threw it to Chaim Bloom to say, hey, Chaim, when he's coming up. And here's the end of the video. You can see here, Baez is running around.
Chaim, when is he going to be on the team?
Literally the most I've never seen a guy do such an obvious pumping the brakes thing in a moment. So Chaim Bloom literally pumping the brakes on Jose Baez. And of course, I believe the reason why he did that is obviously because we now know, Derek Gould doing some awesome reporting, Baez knew before the game that he was getting sent down after the game. So literally the ball's in the air. Haim's got to, and the guy says that Haim's got to be like, you don't know what news is coming in the next hour, my guy. He literally gets sent down the other day. But I loved that from Haim. I loved it from the fan, obviously, who we got that from. And I had his name up on the video, and I'm blanking on it right now. My apologies.
But
I'm going to find it right
great.
now.
That was good stuff.
It was really good stuff. And honestly, this is why people who are still like pissy about the change of the guard, like, you've got to be excited about Chaim taking over. Even if he's not 100% your guy, the fact that he's watching the game like that, he has that moment and he gives a very literal kind of answer to the guy's question. I think that's pretty fun. It was Tim Kanek, who is at Fantasy Ace Baseball, is the one that threw it out. He hosts the Prospect Warehouse pod, and he does a lot of fantasy baseball. You guys can check him out. He had that funny video. I just love that from Chaim. I think he kind of gets that having a little fun, being accessible is an important thing right now with how the Cardinals messaging over the last few years has been.
And I think there are just some people that are incapable of being positive or happy, which is fine. That's part of what it takes, all kinds to make the world go round, right? So if people want to be unhappy about every single thing, and hey, I guarantee you that there are people that would, if the Cardinals would go 161-1, they'd be pissed off because of the one.
That's fair. I try to stay positive about a lot of things. I am always negative about things involving Kansas City.
It sounds like it.
Nick Wright, who I guess is from Kansas City, posted earlier today pointing out that Kansas City was number 1 in the market for one of the USA WBC games and was number 2 in markets for another WBC game. I think it had Brazil in it. He neglected to mention that St. Louis was also on that list in the 3rd spot both times. And he talked about how great every sports TV rating for basically any big event in sport always tells the same story. KC is just the best sports town in America. So I thought to myself, you know what? There was a sporting event a few weeks ago that was pretty big in America, where they're apparently the best sports town. USA Gold, top 15 markets to watch the USA Gold medal game. I did not see Kansas City in the top 15. Top 10, though, I did see St. Louis. Who's 3rd on the list for both of these WBC games? St. Louis. Who doesn't have one of the best players, arguably top 3 in a fantasy redraft, on their roster playing in the WBC right now? St. Louis.
But the Royals draw so well.
St. Louis, best sports town in America. Sorry, Nick.
By the way, if you did watch last night's Blues game, and I was just joking when I said
obviously
that they were, I left when they went ahead 4-0. Aren't you glad that Robert Thomas is still a member of the St. Louis?
Hell yes, I am. My God, can he play? He is incredible. You know what? Good idea for the next Blues game when you go down there and watch there. Before you head to the Blues game, head over to our friends over at the Key STL Burger Bar and Boogie. It's your new home in the Grand Center Art Districts, right there at Olive and Compton, just down the street from Chaffetz Arena, few blocks up from regular downtown where City and the Blues are hanging. So if you want to get there early, get to the Key, hang out, grab a burger before you head down to Enterprise Center or to Energizer Park, or if you want to head to the best place to watch any away games, it is the Key STL Burger Bar and Boogie. The Burger Bar features the ultimate smash burger experience with a dozen homemade sauces. You can see it right now on the screen. That is the little dining area they got. They got the bar there. They got the food window. They got a big menu board where they got smash burgers, patty melts, fries, all these different sauces. They say the sauces are great for the burgers. I think the sauces are really the story with the fries, because you get at least one sauce with your fry order. Get the garlic mayo. Thank me later. Make plans and make some plans now to be at the Key for all the great college basketball games coming up again. The Blues, City, Cardinals when it starts, but your home for college basketball is going to be the Key STL. They'll have all kinds of fun happening, including drink specials each time an underdog wins a first round game, as well as a beat the bartender contest. You 1v1 versus the man who's pouring your drinks. I suggest you let him win every once in a while. If you're going to the first and second round games here in St. Louis, again, those at Enterprise, it's the perfect place to head to before and after the game. That's the Key STL Burger Bar and Boogie, 3225 Olive in Midtown. Before, during, or after any game, find out more at thekeystl.com. Again, right there at the corner of Olive and Compton. And because it is a little bit up from the main downtown area, always street parking right there on the side. Super easy, especially on the weekends, because parking downtown is free on the weekends and after 6 p.m. So late game, weekend game, you don't even have to pay for parking. There's all those street slots right next to the Key down there in Midtown. Get down there, grab some burgers, have some fun watching some college basketball this year.
Absolutely. By the way, as the Blues did fall 4-3 to the Islanders, Thomas was a +3.
Yep.
So that was pretty good for him. And I did like seeing the new guys. And we heard Doug Armstrong talking about that, how they were going to give an opportunity to Stenberg and Lindstein, and they're getting their opportunities. And kind of like when the Blues called up Snuggerud last year, I love having the guys get that taste of the National Hockey League.
And how about Snuggy? I mean, this is something we heard about, the shot. I don't care if he's a slow skater. I don't care about anything else. The shot. And him and Thomas are finding a groove. Like we always talked about, finding that shooter on the Thomas's line. And Kyrie they never grooved the way we thought they were going to. He might have found his guy because like eyes in the back of his head. I mean, garage band version of Oates and Hawley right there, because I mean, he is seeing everything, and Snuggy is putting them away right now.
And Holloway is a perfect player on that line, because he'll, as Marty mentioned after the game, he'll be a dog and go get the puck.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're building something, and unlike a few weeks ago when they were potentially building something completely from scratch, they got some good base pieces to work off, at least until the summer.
But don't win too much. Let's get some more of those three goals.
I'm trying not to get too much on the tanking. The team's playing well. We still want to get a top 3 pick. Another draft article I read the other day on The Athletic, always killing it there. Top 3 pick seems like it would be safe. There's a third player in there with McKenna and Stenberg. So top 3 pick, I'm fine. Any win or any game where young Blues are playing well, any game where Jimmy Snuggerud is potentially showing that kind of elite shot, it's a win for the tank, especially if it's actually an L in the book. The 4-game win streak was a good thing as well, because they still have to learn how to win. You got good games from Mayu in there, Cam Fowler, who potentially becomes a trade piece again by playing well. That's big too. So we're working things into some of these wins. Tank is still good. Tank's still okay.
Just do it ethically. That's all we ask.
That's all we ask.
All right.
Speaking of that, we got to mention one other thing.
Okay.
We are a sports show.
Yes.
And we didn't mention this until now, which is a little poor from us.
Egregious.
But Kobe Bryant's second highest scoring game in NBA history goes down last night to the Miami Heat's Bam Adebayo, who pours in 83. Randy, here's the craziest part about it for me. He did it on a less efficient line than Kobe Bryant did. Kobe Bryant went 7 of 13 from deep. Bam Adebayo at one point was 7 for 22 in this game. 43 free throw attempts.
And 43 field goal attempts. Shouts to the Wizards for hacking the living shit out of him the entire game. All those fouls were earned. He's just never touched the ball that much in his career before. But it's absolutely insane to me that a more egregious example of shot chucking than Kobe's 81, which in my mind has always been the most egregious example of shot chucking I've seen in my lifetime. Bam Adebayo, tip the cap to you. 83 in any context is damn impressive. But the fact that you were even less efficient than Mamba, I mean, just get in the gym. Asia, help the man work on the jumper. Well, number one, this is something that the NBA should celebrate. And
it was great.
You got the coach in Houston, the old Boston coach.
I'm Udoka.
Yeah, who's saying, well, it was the Wizards. Well, how did your guys do against the Wizards? Okay. Did any of your guys score 83 against the Wizards? Did Kevin Durant score 83? I don't know. Have any of your guys, whether you were in Boston or in Houston, have any of your guys ever scored 83 against the Wizards? People are dunking on Spoelstra today for keeping him in. So
speaking of that, on TSN last night, they're doing their basketball segment, and one of the TSN basketball desk people is former Toronto Raptors head coach Sam Mitchell, who was the Raptors head coach when Kobe played them. And they literally toasted champagne with him, and he goes, I'm not the dumbest MFer in the world anymore. He goes, everyone thinks when that happens to you that you're the dumbest MFer in sports. How could you be so stupid? He goes, and now at least one other person knows you can't put on the shoes and go out there and do it yourself, and you try everything. Seeing Sam Mitchell toast champagne, which was actually ginger ale because of FCC violations, I think, was absolutely hilarious, because again, people are going to bitch about the Wizards. People are going to bitch about Bam doing it. People are going to bitch about people missing free throws on purpose to get more foul shots and things like that. People are going to bitch about a lot. I watched NBA history last night, and considering I was not a huge basketball fan when Kobe went off for 81, that was a lot of fun to watch for me.
I agree. I don't know why NBA players are ripping this. This should be celebrated, because this is going to spur, if it spurs interest in one person in the NBA, oh, that guy scored 83, that's cool, I'm going to watch him next time he plays. I don't know why players hate that.
I thought you were going to say this is going to spur Wemby to score 100.
Well, and Wemby's another guy. Go score 100, Wemby, if you got a complaint. Here's the other part of it. I mentioned Eric Spoelstra. When Kobe had his 81-point game, Phil Jackson turned to Tex Winter after the third quarter and said, we're up, let's get him out of there. And Tex Winter said, Coach, he's got 77 points. And Phil had no idea that he had 77 points. He said, oh, okay. So they left him in there to get to 81, but they had a big lead too. Normally, if a guy's scoring 80 points, you're going to have a pretty big lead.
People try to make that argument. They're up by 17 with 4 minutes left. They had a big lead for the Lakers. Bam had 43 at half, and that's when they said, okay, he's got something here. Mainly because that was his career high. Going into the game is what he had at halftime. I thought that was absolutely incredible. I also love the fact that you mentioned Tex Winter on the Lakers bench, because no one ever does. And I think the funniest thing that came out of it, though, was the big joke has always been that Bam Adebayo is not the best basketball player in his household, because he is his spouse is Asia Wilson, who's the best player in the WNBA. And there's somebody says, I feel sorry for whatever poor defender is guarding her the night that she wants the scoring title in the house back. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good case. Put in a futures bet right now for Asia Wilson to score like 78 points or something like that in a WNBA game, because she's not going to want to see Bam walking around the house talking 83 every single night. So Asia's coming for somebody's absolute throat in one of these WNBA games coming up this season.
That's great.
She's also coming off a pregnancy, which is going to be insane. But
yeah,
they do it all the time in that league. It's crazy.
I just wish that other players. Scoring 83 is a big deal. I wish they had more respect for it.
Are there other players? Because are you just referring to the Suns players?
No, there. Who else?
Because Gillespie on the Suns got hit. Wemby, yeah. Was he angry, or was he like, oh, that's cool?
It was more like a derisive.
Oh, really? Because there was a couple that I saw last night, and all the ones I saw last night were players who were getting asked in their post game, and I was like, yeah, that's a dumb time to ask that question to those players. They're thinking about the game they just played. If you ask them tomorrow at shoot around, I bet you Colin Gillespie, who was the Suns player who took some shots, and said it wasn't that special. If you ask Colin Gillespie tomorrow about that after he sees the highlights, I guarantee you he'll have a much better answer.
Well, yeah, and just start playing. I mean, if you're going to take a shot, I just want to see you do better.
That's fair. So congratulations to Bam.
Yeah. One other quick one though. This is a fun story. So, hey, did you ever hear the Reggie Miller and Cheryl Miller story?
Yes, I love it so much.
Great. And we'll get the video for you at some point. But it was 1982. Reggie Miller came home. He had scored 40 points in a high school game, and he thought it was the coolest thing in the world. His parents had gone to see his sister play. His sister walks through the door, and he says to his mom and his dad and Cheryl Miller, oh, guys, I had the best night. I scored 40 and we won. And the parents are go, yeah.
I would have fought her immediately after she said this.
But everybody looks at each other. He says, well, what? And I think it was the father that said, Cheryl just scored 105.
I would have killed Cheryl Miller if I was Reggie. I would have, and the problem was he probably tried to, and he probably got his shit smacked across the room. I would have murdered Cheryl Miller if my brother, and I have an older brother who was better than me at a lot of things. I would have murdered Cheryl Miller if I was Reggie. I score 42 and you score 105. How dare you? And I think part of the story is that like he wasn't a regular starter yet. Right. And like he got the start that night and he's like, I went off. And then she's like, I scored 105. What? Because she was blocking, she was sending his shit back to the floor his entire childhood. Love that story.
Her team, by the way, won 179-15 that night. So pretty good. All right. That's what we got for you today on the Randy Karraker Show here on STL Sports Central. Don't forget, we have post game after all of the Mizzou and St. Louis U tournament games. We'll have more Blues post games for you coming up. And tomorrow tonight, right? Today, do we have LSU in Kentucky?
Yeah, I believe so.
And so the Mizzou will play the winner of that game. And then SLU will play their first game on Friday. So
tomorrow? Kentucky already won.
Kentucky already won. So Mizzou and Kentucky playing tomorrow, and we'll have post game for you after that one right here on STL Sports Central. Wilson got us on the air. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Of course. Also tomorrow, after the Cardinals have a home game against the Mets, we'll be joined by Mike Claiborne.
Oh, good.
I know that you and Bernie this week are going to talk about his comments about Jordan Walker, because we're seeing a lot of the same things from Jordan Walker in spring, which is something we talked about with Nate. I want to get Claibs' view of Mr. Walker so far in spring as well. So we're getting to a little Cardinals stuff tomorrow with one of the voices of the Cardinals in Mike Claiborne.
Looking forward to that. We'll see you next time on STL Sports Central.